So I've been asked multiple times this week, how are you going to follow up last Sunday? I'm not going to follow up. I'm not going to try and do better than last Sunday. Let me just say, as a speaker, especially a speaker for God, you can plan as much as you want, but there are times where you say a lot of stuff that isn't planned. And I'll say that only a third of last week was planned. God took the rest. And people have mentioned, like, what do you do? And I'm like, God just did it. I didn't have to do anything. God just did it. And I actually found myself having to go back and listen to the message again because I didn't remember what was really said. So it was an interesting week. So this message is not going to top it, I'll tell you that. So I've performed weddings for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. I've performed baptisms, funerals for your loved ones. I've seen many of you grow in your faith. And I could sit here and stand here and tell you stories all day long of how I've witnessed God working and moving in your lives. But I'll spare you all of those stories. I want to start by thanking some people. The first one I want to thank is Jeff Witt, who has faithfully served as the worship leader for 7.5 of my 8 years here at Trinity. And when I say faithfully, I mean he hasn't missed a Sunday in 7.5 years. And even when he wrecks his car on the way to church, literally this morning, he's still here leading worship. And as a pastor, to have that kind of person to depend on is, the greatest feeling in the world. So thank you, Jeff, for all that you have done. I want to say thank you to John Pearson, who literally is in the nursery with the kids. I want to thank him for his leadership with the children and youth ministry and with leading young adult life group and organizing church activities for the last 2 years. I want to say thank you to Pam Davis, who has scheduled volunteers. She's worked with our Guest Connections team and has printed and folded a whole lot of bulletins. So thank you, Pam, for all that you do. I want to say thank you to Carol Perry, who has worked hard every week to keep this massive building clean. And not just once. We've got multiple groups that come in and use the building throughout the week, and she keeps it clean for all of us. So thank you, Carol, for all that you have done. I want to say a big thank you to someone that I'm going to miss. Our weekly talks. I want to thank Bill Aspie. For his many years of coming into the office every week to take on one of the most stressful jobs in the church, managing the finances. I know because I've done it. I hated every minute of it. But he willingly comes in every week. And we don't just talk about finances. And every Wednesday, 10 o'clock. We've lived life together. So thank you, Bill. And that was easier to write. I want to ask you that if you have served as a greeter, a life group leader, if you've worked in the sound booth, if you've helped in the nursery or with children's ministry, if you've helped with VBS, served, if you've helped with the community Easter egg hunt, if you've served communion, if you've been a Sunday school teacher, if you would please stand. If you've counted offering, if you've been a trustee, if you've walked in the parade for the church, if you guys would please stand up. There's a reason that you're standing. You're the church. You've served. I'm not the church. You guys are. I'm part of it, but you guys are the church. You guys are what make the church grow and what make the church continue. And when you look around the room, 90% of you are standing up. And it takes 100% of you to continue it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all that you have done for this church. Thank you. You can sit. During my time here at Trinity Church, if you have served on the church's administrative board, if you would please stand up. Not just current, but if you've served at any point as a board member. I want to thank you for all the love and support that you have given me over the last 8 years. I consider myself blessed to have worked with a team of people who do not only support me, but have challenged me and didn't back down from asking the hard questions. As your pastor, I needed you. And in needing you, you came through. And I can't thank you enough for your leadership in helping me be a better leader myself. So thank you for serving this church. You can be seated. I want to say thank you to yours and my for 3 more weeks. District Superintendent, he's retiring, Dave Byram. In the last 8 years, I have never questioned whether Dave was in my corner or not. He has always been there as a support system, whether I needed a listening ear, a word of wisdom or encouragement, some correction, prayer, or just a friend to talk to. Dave has been there. For the last 2 years, he's been mentoring me. And we've talked about being able to walk through this next season of life together. And I share my thank you to him with you because I hope that you have someone like that. Someone that you can walk through life with, that you can learn from, that you can allow to speak into your life freely. Because he said some things to me that I didn't really like at the time, but I needed to hear it. But he's also been there as a support system, that he's always had my back, and so I'm grateful for him as well. So I want to leave you with 4 things. As a pastor, I think about the hundreds of messages I've given. How do I wrap up 8.5 years? And I realize that I don't have any new material. But 4 things I want you to take with you. That if I could tell you 4 things that I want you to never forget, these would be 4 of them. So from Ephesians, to kind of start out our message here, Ephesians 1:15 through 23. It says, for this reason, ever since I heard about your faith in the Lord Jesus and your love for all God's people, I have not stopped giving thanks for you, remembering you in my prayers. I keep asking that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the glorious Father, may give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation, so that you may know him better. I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparable great power for us who believe. The power is the same as the mighty strength he exerted when he raised Christ from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenly realms, far above all rule and authority, power and dominion, in every name that is invoked, not only in the present age, but also in the one to come. And God placed all things under his feet and appointed him to be the head over everything for the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fulfills everything in every way. The first thing I want to leave with you this morning is simple. Don't go to church. Be the church. Notice what Paul says in verse 22. He says, and God placed all things under his feet, Jesus, and appointed him to be the head over everything for the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills everything in every way. Let me ask you a question. Do you think when he says the church that he's talking about a bunch of buildings? No. He could care less about the beauty or the ugliness of our buildings. But it's you who are the church. Don't go to church. You are the church. And when you come together, the church gathers. But when you leave, the church goes into the community. The second thing this morning is come as you are. Just don't leave that way. And I'm not talking about coming in the Franklin Street door and leaving out the north door. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you to change things up in how you get in and out of the building. I'm saying, come as you are. If your best clothes are a bunch of holey jeans and a shirt that barely fits, come as you are. If you want to dress up in a suit and tie and the best dress you have, come as you are. Don't think that you have to change yourself to be a part of God's church, to be a part of the fullness of him. You are a part of Jesus Christ. Come with a mindset of saying, I want to get something out of today. I want to grow. I know some of you are already thinking, what in the world's the next guy or woman going to be like that's going to be the pastor? Are they going to be as good of a preacher as Pastor Dustin? I know that's what you're thinking. But I remember a story that I once heard about a pastor. His name was Bill Hybels. He actually just recently retired as a pastor of one of the largest churches in the United States. And every summer he takes a sabbatical and he steps down from his teaching position and he goes up to his cabin in Michigan. And he says, you know what? I go to church. And he goes, you know what? I'm intentional about finding a small hole-in-the-wall church. He goes, nobody knows me. He knows, quite honestly, the preaching's horrible. But he said, you know what? I learn something every time I go. He says, because of my posture when I go. I go with the intention of knowing that regardless of what comes out of the pastor's mouth, I can learn from him. I can learn from that person. God can use that person to teach me something about my faith in my God. Don't let somebody limit your faith and what you can learn because of your judgment of their ability. Open yourselves up to learn from everybody. Number 3, give something of yourself away. Come as you are, but don't leave that way. Come willing to learn, but come willing to give yourself away. Because your life was never meant to be your own. It was always meant for the people around you, for the people who need you. You need each other. Come willing to give yourself away. Romans 13, verses 8 through 10. It says, let no debt remain outstanding, except the continuing debt to love one another. For whoever loves others has fulfilled the law. The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and whatever other commandment there may be, are summed up in one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. You see, if we pursue a life of loving God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, everything else will fall into place. Everything else comes together. You see, if we love God with all of our being, how much easier do you think it would be to actually love our neighbors? But you see, we try to do the reverse. In our minds, we think about how hard it would be to love that annoying neighbor. But you see, we're trying to love them in our ability, in our strength. But God said we were never supposed to do that. God was always supposed to be the first person that we seek to love and to be loved by. And it's out of that relationship that we're taught what true love is and what it looks like. And then we're to love our neighbor. What if we put our relationship with God before our relationship with our spouse? Before our relationship with our kids? Before our relationships with our neighbors and our coworkers and the people at church? How different would love look like if we put our relationship with God before our jobs? See, I think the world would look totally different. people would be a lot more happy on their commute to work. People would care for each other a whole lot easier, because it wouldn't be the love that was coming out of themselves, but it would be a love that they had learned from the God who created them. Number 4, you are the best representation of you. You're the best representation of you. Believe it or not, no one can do you better than you. Some of you, that will sink in later. You see, people hesitate to be who they are because they define who they are by what everyone else tells them, rather than what God proclaims about them. You see, I think it's so hard for us to imagine giving something of ourselves away because we're so concerned about what everyone else around us thinks. One of the main things I told myself when I came here as the pastor is, regardless of how you felt about me, I was going to be me. I wasn't going to put on an act. When I was having a bad day, I was going to tell you I'm having a bad day. When I was struggling up here to come up with the words, I was going to tell you that I was struggling. I wasn't going to put on a mask and say that this is the person you see on Sunday, and then if you see me during the week, I'm a completely different person. I told myself, I will be myself. And I want to thank you for allowing me to be myself. You would be surprised how many pastors cannot say that about their churches, because they feel like they have to act a certain way. They have to act like they've got it all together. They can't let the bad things come out. They've got to be strong for everybody. I'll be honest with you. Jeff was struggling this morning. I didn't have the words. I wanted to do something for him, but I was like, what? What do I do? And so I just kind of like nodded my head a little bit. It's like, I don't know. But I didn't try to come up with a solution for him. I didn't try and like give him all the answers to what he needs to do next. He knew I was there supporting him. I didn't have to do anything different than just be me. I strongly believe that God has been able to use me to have a deeper impact because of the expectation, because of your expectation of me was simply to be me. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be myself. A couple more thank yous. He's here today, so it's kind of weird to talk about him. I usually get to talk about him and he doesn't know it. But I want to thank my dad. It doesn't take you long to walk around this building and find a piece of my dad. I have loved every minute of getting to work with my dad. See, growing up, I cared about sports, and that was about it. But you see, Dad's a hands-on guy. he gets his hands dirty. He works on things. And he tried to teach me how to work on a car. At the time, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But as I got older, I realized I like to do a lot of the things that he likes to do. And being the pastor here has given me an opportunity to bond with him in a way I never have before. And so if we have put in countless hours together, painting, tearing things up, hopefully putting it back together a little better. He has wired things, he's made things. One of the things I'm taking with me, but this podium and simple things that we've been able to take just some of our creativity and use. And you know what? He hasn't charged me a penny. And I probably would have to pay him like my whole salary if we were paying him. Many of you have actually told me, and I love it. I've had someone go so far as to say, Dad has to become a United Methodist pastor so that he can stay here and do all the maintenance work. I had some just say he still has to stay. He can't go with me. I'm sorry. I'm taking his abilities with me because, trust me, this church I'm going to needs some love. But thank you, Dad, for all of your help. I'm looking down like I'm trying to find the next thing to say, but there's nothing there. Next one. I've made the comment that you have allowed me to be myself. And I'm pretty sure I told you coming into this thing that you weren't going to trump my family. If there's an emergency, I would be more than happy to come. But when it came to extra things, there are going to be times where I wasn't going to be around because whether it was something for my girls or for Kaylin or for any part of my family, that they were going to come first. And believe it or not, it's rare that a pastor gets to say that and be able to do it. Because many churches have expectations of what the pastor has to do, and you wouldn't believe the things that they'll come up with. And loving their family's not on that list. But I want to thank you for allowing me to love my family, to put my family first. And I'm not going to say by any means that I've been perfect, because there have been times where I should have been there and I wasn't. And that wasn't your fault. That was my fault. But I want to thank you because I have said that if you want to show me love my family. And there's never been a question whether you've loved my family or not. You opened your arms to us. You've loved my kids to death. And that's the biggest thing for me, is that you love my family. Because if you love them, you love me. And thank you for allowing me not just to share my life with you, but to share my family with you. It means a great deal to me. I think about the times early in being here. I think about Samantha when we first came and were trying to potty train her. And at the time, they sat up here in the balcony, and all you could see was her little pigtails as she runs off to the bathroom. And I lost everybody, regardless of where the message was. I lost all of you. And you watched her. It was like watching a tennis match. You guys watched her all the way out, and then you watched her all the way in. But you know what? I really didn't care. Because you cared about my kid. And thank you. That means more to me than I could ever really express. And so I finish with Paul's words to the Philippians. I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, in all of my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel. Because of our partnership in the gospel. From the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. It is right for me to feel this way about all of you, since I have you in my heart. And whether I am in chains or defending and confirming the gospel, or in Gas City, Indiana, all of you share in God's grace with me. God can testify how I long for all of you with the affection of Christ Jesus. And this is my prayer: that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. Thank you. And for all of you, I thank God. Stand with me. If you'll reach out your hands and receive this blessing. Jesus, I am the one who today receives this blessing. You've blessed me with some great people. God, I thank you for every high moment. I thank you for every low moment that we have all walked through together. God, I wouldn't change a day that we went through, because it has brought us to this moment right now. God, I pray that you will continue to help our relationships continue to grow. That our love for each other would not be coming to an end, but it would just be a little farther away. And just like your love knows no bounds, I know that our love for each other can travel 30 minutes. God, I pray for each person here today, for each person who is not here, that is a part of this Jesus community. God, I pray that the work of your kingdom would not finish and be stopped simply because I'm not here. I pray that it would just get better. I pray for the people who you are raising up as leaders in this community and how you're going to use them for your kingdom. How more people are going to come to know who you are and who are going to love you because of people in this very room today. Because they're going to love you first so that they can love everyone else through your eyes. God, may your blessing and may your peace that passes all understanding go with us always as we work together for your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven.